Hi, everyone. Well, finally, I'm recording this video talking about the source code. And even though it's not the first video that I have made based on this topic, it is the first one that I am putting all the information together with the plasma body activation, which I have also been talking about for a couple of months now, almost a year. So, well, welcome. So, what I want to tell you, first of all, is that as multidimensional beings, we have different bodies, different layers of our bodies. And, before I even say so, I just want to share that my eyes are kind of sensitive to the light right now. That's why I'm wearing this amazing and loving sunglasses, which make the light red. So that's quite comfortable for me right now. And so, now going back to the source code. As multidimensional beings, we as onions, imagine onions that have different layers, so do we. We have fractals of ourselves, different expressions of ourselves with different and unique encodings that actually allows us to be slightly different to one another. It's like having different recipes. Therefore, if the ingredients are different, they might variate a little bit, but they are not the same result. So the same with our bodies and our fractal constitution, our fractal nature, and our multidimensional nature as well. So now, when we put all of this information together, because imagine, energy is information, right? So, and the information at some point, that energy needs to translate into a specific form. In this case, matter. And also different levels of frequency that go at different speeds. The less the frequency, or the slowest the frequency is, the more it becomes dense. And then that translates into the energy density, and then the capability to transform that into matter. So our source code, when we talk about Merkaba, I'm quite sure that most people that will be watching this video is related to that term, Merkaba, which is Kaba, cube, and Mer, which is the highest expression, or actually beyond. It's an fusion in between beyond and the highest. So it is talking to it is referring Merkaba that we are actually unfolding that cube. Which cube? Well, I have been sharing in other videos that the matrix says, like the original, the etymology of matrix is in Latin and it's equivalent to womb. So when we're talking about matrices, we're talking about different wombs. And what happens in the womb? Life is conceived, life is created. And then we can relate it to the fact that matrices are wombs that are putting together information, and that information is translating into a reality depending on the dimension from which it is perceived. So when we come to our mom's womb, then we're going to access to a three-dimensional form of perception. And the source code is that transmission of our light body, our geometrical light body, that is embedded in every dimension. Every dimension, it interconnects actually all dimensions. Even though it comes from the ninth dimension and communing with the universal language, which is geometry, it is embedded in all dimensions. So when we are aware of our source code, we are capable to interact with all those dimensions. Even there are more than 9. The thing is that in this matrix, the reality, how it has been configured, it is all about geometries and numerical and how we translate the geometries, which is through numerical values. The numerical values, imagine that what they are showing is the speed, the rhythm in which the cycles of that beaming coming from our light body is ordered, for us to understand how those geometries function. So the source code as well, if I say that it is our geometrical light body, and the name, this big name, which is source code, because it's a big word, so it's talking to us about precisely that intimate connection from a state of awareness with the source to all. And of course, you don't need your source code, be aware of it, to have a connection, a direct connection to the source to all and be aware of it, because that's inherently given, at least the intimate connection. The awareness comes as we start this path of conscious awareness, waking up, this awakening process. And however, one of the keys of the source code, which makes a huge, huge difference from knowing it to not knowing it, or being aware of how it looks like, is that more and more we know and we have acknowledged and accepted that we live in an entangled universe. Thank you to unified physics. It has now officially been acknowledged that we live in an entangled universe, which means that everything is interconnected, everything, through a huge interface that is directly connected to the source to all. So from that source to all the information comes at different scales to every form of existence that inhabits in all dimensions. So that's why we are fractals, because we are fractals from the source to all, just based on the information that is active, because all the information of the whole universe is present in us, is present in our DNA. The difference is what information is active within us. We can relate it to this to our genetic code, uh, the dormant genes, and so forth, you know? So every one of us has different information active. And based on that active codes, then we will have a different body, different constitution, and different, like biologically speaking, as we know. What happens when it comes to a higher form of perception or higher form of consciousness? Well, then our geometry is different. It's like our fingerprint. We have a unique fingerprint that recognizes us, all of us, while we are experiencing this simulation matrix. And so we have also a unique geometry that distinguish us from all the blueprints of the, like, directly coming from the source to all, which for instance would be the flower of life at its full potential, expanding like a torus, like a flower, of course, and also the tree of life projected into four directions, not only into one as how it was given to us, generating therefore the particle of light. If you want to know what I'm talking about, perhaps you want to see one of my previous videos where I'm showing how we were just given 1/4 of the information and we are to complete it, the other 3/4, in order to have the full spectrum of light, of that wholeness, that information that we are to remember and require to remember in order to enlighten our, like, enlighten. It can be taken literally and it can also be taken into a spiritual form. uh, Literally would be more into a scientific from a scientific approach, because if we're talking about geometrical light body and plasma, then if we put some glasses on capable to perceive or turn on our third eye, then we're capable to perceive this reality, which actually is what happens to me. I'm capable to see this reality through geometries. And a lot of people experience this when they do ceremonies with sacred plants, because actually what they do is that they disable the connection of the amplified functioning of the amygdaloid body, which is, along with the reticular system, is the oldest organs in our body that haven't evolved. So, talking about the amygdaloid body and the reticular system. The reticular system is related to the circadian system, therefore, with the pineal gland and with our natural cycles that actually allow us to ground. So that's why also having the accurate time, the cyclic system instead of a time control system is so important. Otherwise, we are generating alter realities where our body is telling us something and our like our biology and the reality is telling us another thing. So then that starts to generate an alter reality and to manifest actually in like looking it enhanced in our brain hemispheres, the creative part and the analytic part, because the analytic part would be mostly tuned into what is meant to be through the logic and like the cognitive perception, whereas our creative thinking will be more into the intuition, what you feel. So then that translates into also a deface in between our feminine energy and our masculine energy, and also like the poles, like the extra polarization, which actually, when we talk about the 5D, which is fully ignition of your geometrical light body, and I will explain why, we're talking about, it's not that poles will not exist anymore. No, then again, it's all about a form of perception. A form of perception that will recognize that it's not black or white. It's a full spectrum of light that holds both colors, and it's just different gradients to it. So then all that battle in between the two forces stops, because the two forces acknowledge that they are one, and that due to the cycles, each one is supposed to beam at a faster or a strong rate, depending on what we are creating at the moment. So now, this is exactly what happens with your geometrical light body. For instance, imagine, like, if you, instead of seeing my physical body or your physical body in front of the mirror, you will see a geometrical body. And that geometrical body is directly connected to the holofractographic field and to the holographic field. What's the difference? Well, I'm quite sure that you have heard the story that the Earth is like, we live in a flat Earth. If we look at the reality as a hologram, then of course we're talking about a bidimensional form of perception, where, for instance, the block sphere is the one that expands it into three directions, which are the main three constants that include space, time, and the speed of light. And then there go into more constants as faster than light, and so forth. So, and also one of the things, like experiencing a third dimensional form of perception, is that everything comes in trine groups. And for instance, the proton, the neutron, and the electron, and we could go at a Planck scale, or we could go at a Schwarzschild scale, and all these trine groups are pointing out to the fact that two poles become one when they recognize the singularity that connects them both. So imagine that as you are perceiving your body or my body as pure geometries, and my geometry or your geometry is unique. Like, no one has the same source code that you do. However, all source codes are embedded in the universal blueprints of creation. And moreover, like, we could go also to other scales. Omniversal, let's summarize it. And through those blueprints of creation, which is mainly the torus. And from the torus, all forms, all geometries, sacred geometries are embedded. And then we go into other kind of sacred geometries or codes, like the ones that I was mentioning earlier in the video, in the beginning of this video, which are the tree of life and the Metatron's cube, or the flower of life with a seal, which is the circle, which are actually to be completed. And that's what it's so important to acknowledge. It's like, for instance, if someone tells you, okay, here you have the chicken, and they give you an egg, and you will say, what? This is not a chicken. And then if you go deep into what they tell to you, they say, oh, this will be a chicken. I need to do this and this and this and this and this. So when we actually listen and perceive the information that was given to us as just part of the wholeness, then we can be more receptive to that information and more willing to complete it. And then we will see that it's not about the 6, and it is. It's more about the 7, because in order to get to the 7, we need to go through the 6. Like I was explaining in another post about the Metatrans cube, if you also want to know what I'm talking about, perhaps you want to dive into the posts that I have been lately uploading, planting, because I'm talking about this, and otherwise this will be a 3 hours video, and that's not the purpose. So anyway, the same thing happens with the source code. As we all inherently have a source code, whether if you're aware of it or not, the thing is that it is active in, again, 1/4. Like the tree of life that they show to us in the Kabbalah, just 1/4. If we complete it, it creates the particle of light. And in our source code, in our geometry, which I will be showing in a little bit, it's the source code that I had the honor to translate for a sister, that and I will show so that you can have a more like a clearer idea of what I'm talking about. So our source code is that connection to the holofractographic field and to the holographic field, as I was saying. It's the bridge, it's the key, it's the door, it's dynamic, as our RNA is. As if we are, well, that's another topic, but it's related to the RNA and to the DNA editing. But anyway, I can talk about that in another video. So, yeah, it's dynamic. It's quite dynamic. So, why is it the bridge in between the holographic field and the holofractographic field? Because when I, for instance, translate a source code, I will show now. Okay, one thing with the glasses. This one, okay, there it is. Okay. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to expand this. Okay, so here we have, okay, hold on. Okay, this is the source code, solo, you know? And you can see that it's a geometry, it's beautiful, it's kind of symmetrical, not fully symmetrical, because not even our body is symmetrical. We have sometimes arm longer than the other one, a leg, a feet, an eye, and so forth. I could go on. So it's the geometrical, your geometrical light body, your source code. And then you can ask, but why is it supposed to be the source? So it's meant to be perfect. And now that's where I'm heading to. That's why it's the bridge. So it's the bridge to the holographic field when it is in an entropic state, which is precisely this, just unfolded in a linear form. Even though it's beautiful, it is not fully activated. And this is how people, if they don't fully activate it in 1,440 degrees, the double torus, this is what their source code is like. Not in this shape, but I'm talking like linearly speaking, and like bidimensionally speaking, actually. So then it is like you are pulsing your light, the potential of your light, like fairly enough to breathe and do positive things and remarkable things from your reality. However, the anchors that were put in your human mold energetically, like in your physical body. I will explain a little bit this. I will explain this in a little bit, and also I will be talking about this in my next video on control systems. This, we can see that is the Vitruvius Man, which is the code for the pentagon, and to the 14 pieces of Osiris, which is related to the 14 spaces in between the 13 joints, and to the 13 zodiac signs plus 1, which is also the 12 apostles from Jeshua, Jeshua being the 13, which is the center of the heart, and the 14 being the consciousness of Mary Magdalene, which is actually the circle that is moving the particle of light. Therefore, it's not death. It wasn't crucifix. It was just a process of transition in order to reach the enlightenment. This is precisely what happens when you activate your plasma body. So I will also go deeper into it in my next video on control systems, because it's about energy, the control systems that is given through energy, our energetical expression, which everything is energy. So it will be quite deep. So bottom line, well, imagine this is another code and how it unfolds into 720 degrees as a sphere, okay, a torus. And then when it multiplies, the sphere multiplies, then we have to like replicates, I'm sorry, then it turns into a double torus. So we can see the process of how it is replicating like a cell replication, beautiful. And then here we have into the 4 directions. Imagine that the tree of life of the Kabbalah was this, and then you start to replicating it into 13 spheres. And then, oh, what have we got here? Okay, it's the cross. And then, well, yeah, it's not the same with the tree of life, because it shows precisely the particle of light. So I truly recommend to watch my other video when I'm talking about this. So then here the source code multiplies, you see, into 8 directions, and then how it shifts, right? You can see it, how it shifts, the energy, the frequency. And then, and this is what I share in the methods that I am facilitating on the source code activation, how this in motion is replicated into a double torus. Actually, this would be more expanded and like replicated more than 8 times, but I showed here in 8 because it's the unfolding of the cube behind this image. And yeah, I was going to show other images about how it actually then shows with the plasma body activation, but I will do another video on that correlation, because I will, yeah, well, I will just show one image, but in a bit. Okay, so now this is what happens when you activate in a very specific way your source code. Once you know what your source code is, like how it looks like, and because throughout this method that I am providing is the translation of your source code. How? Because this is very important. Well, there are very specific information that I request from you that route you to this simulation matrix, what routed you, like your date of birth, which is anchored to the Gregorian calendar, and then do a series of specific algorithms to go beyond that anchor and tune into and scan all the information, like how I was saying earlier, how I perceive reality when I switch on that capability. Otherwise, it would be all the time. Imagine, beautiful, but also like kind of distracting to be in this reality. So, well, and then I read your source code translated and do the reading for you, because all the information that you require for your soul mission and your life mission is there in that code. And I also do it in very specific cases if you ask for it, along with the astral chart. That's very powerful as well because it gives you precise information about everything related to you. So, what's the difference about an astral chart, your source code? Well, you can use your source code as a tool, high technology tool, holofractographic tool. Um, when it unfolds into 1440 degrees, then it is the manifestation of the holofractographic reality, because the holofractographic reality is sustained in more than bidimensional or tridimensional figures. It is the multidimensional spectrum. And our source code unfolded as a double torus. Then it routes to the vesica Pisces and to very specific encodings in how to disconnect, more than disconnect, in how to release the anchors, release yourself from the anchors that were energetically put in the human blueprint, not only your blueprint, in the human blueprint. Imagine that you have, like, again, like cooking classes, cooking examples. You want to make cookies. You want to make human cookies. Okay. And then you do a mold, and you're so powerful that you want the cookie to have life, like your gingerbread cookie. And so, but you want that cookie to act in a very specific form, not any form. So then very specific anchors were put in very specific parts of the body. And I will talk about this in my video on control system, part 2, energy. And so that's why, like, you say, well, if we are so empowered and we are doing everything to shift reality, why this matrix, this simulation, is so anchored? And yeah, a lot of people is also in a sleep, falling into the dream spell. Yes, but also why it's so difficult for them to awake? And it's because of those energetic anchors. And even if you are awakened already, if you have awakened already, those energetic um, anchors are still there. And from 100% of the energy that it's yours and that you spend in your daily life routine or experiences, let's say that depending on the level of consciousness and awareness that you have, that if you have a very high level of consciousness, 10%, 20% is still nourishing through those anchors the egregor systems. It's like economy, for instance. If you are out of the grid, and yet you're still using money, okay, so that's actually still nourishing. So of course there are different layers, and then again, that's for another video. The important thing about the source code is that once you release your holofractal, your source code, your geometrical light body from those anchors, then it's easier, much easier to shift reality, much easier. And it doesn't come like something forced, like you're learning all these concepts and you need to learn how things function. No, it comes naturally because that's our multidimensional nature. So another thing about the source code is that, as I was saying, the moment that you activate it, just by activating it, which is being aware of it, we activated it in 3 very specific parts of the body. It's a process. It's about a month process, and these 3 parts of the body like the 8 original cells, they are amplifiers, energy amplifiers that actually are whole. Let's say that you have small black holes, and those small black holes in your body, in those 3 points, are actually capable, like have all that information dormant of your source code. So once you activate it, it expands and it goes through the black hole and through the white hole, through the singularity. Bottom line, when you activate your source code from those 3 points, what you are doing is rising your antenna where in those parts of your body was imprinted the primordial codes of your cosmic nature. It's a cosmic race. That's why it's connected to the coccyx, where the original cells are. This is why it's connected to the vertebral column, which are the 33 aspects of the light consciousness, also known as Christic consciousness, which is to enlighten the body as a star. And also in the back part of in the bottom part of the skull, in between the vertebral column and the skull, which is actually where there is the output and the input to this reality. So once you activate it, it's like releasing yourself from those anchors and rising the information, igniting the information that connects you to that sovereign state, what we would translate as sovereign state, which in physics terms is merely about a state of coherence with the source to all. So that's also very important, something very important about the source code. As all those anchors that were set through the hologram to keep on perpetuating that looping or of this simulation reality, when you activate your source code, it's sending an emission from the holofractographic field to the source to all and gaining back that power that is so strong that immediately it puts out the anchor. And so yeah, it's very important, because if we really want to shift this reality, then we need to stop nourishing it directly and indirectly. And unfortunately, energetically, like you can be having the conscious or like conscious sexuality, like Kundalini awakening and so forth. And if you don't detach from those anchors, from the holofractographic field, because that's how it was configured through the hologram. So what's bigger in potence than the hologram, the holofractographic field? So then it puts it out immediately. Yeah, sexuality is a huge form of energy harvesting from the simulation reality, coming from the simulation reality. So yeah, it's very important for us to be responsible of our energy and also of our multidimensionality and what the implications of that. Knowing your source code. I know that very, like, a lot of people is not related to this word even. Perhaps they immediately think about the source and the code of the source to all. We all have that code that connects us to the source as fractals of the source. So it's like claiming our righteous power of being sovereign and therefore acting in absolute coherence, which is starting to expand our multidimensional capabilities, hypersensorial capabilities, psionic skills, and so forth. Yeah, you can call it however you want. And yeah, so if you're interested in that, I translate your source code and start to perceive reality from a higher form of perception, and to comprehend and understand how this reality was created, the holographic reality, and how the holofractographic field is capable to dissolve all the anchors that were set in the hologram through the hologram, then yeah, it's like they just took a piece in order to recreate a reality. And also something very important, that this simulated reality was created while the simulation matrix was created while the primordial matrix regenerate, to give time for the primordial matrix to regenerate. And by primordial matrix, I'm talking about the Earth's consciousness. And yeah, I will be talking about that in my next video, because it's something very important to understand also about the 12, whether if it's 12 or it's 13, it's all. And yeah, that's why the source code is a breach, because we live in a reality, and we need to go beyond that reality. And to go beyond that reality, we need to know that the weakness from this reality, in order to amplify the strengths of the other reality, and it immediately puts out. Well, I'm saying it very simple. Of course, it's a process. However, where we reinstall our sovereignty within us, and we expand our geometrical light body, then we are sending that emission like, hey, I'm ready, let's do this. And then you're occupying your space from higher forms of consciousness, as a higher form of consciousness. And then you're bringing all your fractals together and being capable to navigate with them through your reality, creating from that field. And that's also something that I will be sharing with you through that method, to construct your reality from the holofractographic field, which is amazing. And yeah, also there are many benefits of translating your source code. I've mentioned the most important ones. And another one is precisely when we talk about the light body, it's full of plasma. Okay, I will just mention this very quick. And okay, so I'm going to share the same image. I just want to explain how the geometries function. And for instance, each one of these lines have very specific information of the timelines or space-time constants that are active in your reality. So you're capable to navigate through all that information and choose. And in order to do that, for instance, if you're going through a tough process, it's most likely that one of these lines, perhaps this one, will go against the current. And the rest of this are going in the direction of the current. So this represents a program that within you, a recessive program, that it's ralentizing, it's decreasing the speed of your code and of your geometry. So then through very specific procedures, holofractographic procedures, you can align this. And then of course it will translate into the physical body through emotions, insights, epiphanies, and yet not in an attached way of comprehending that what you're going through. So yeah, and each line is constituted also to a 0 and a 1, which is a point and a line. So it's also embedded in through the binary code. So that's why it's so powerful, because it can dictate realities from a holofractographic consciousness to this hologram. And yeah, it's such a blessing. When I translated it for myself, my life shifted in a good way, of course, completely. So for me, it's a blessing to join the people who is ready to receive this tech, which is inherent to your multidimensional nature, as I was saying, and that you're entitled to be aware of it. It's your right. It's your birthright. So yeah. And imagine you can unfold from there psionic capabilities, intelligence expansion, aligning your reality to you, and doing it without leading directly with that emotional part. Of course, you will feel it. However, the form of perception, as you have already configured it from the holofractographic field, it will be much easier for you to actually, give a response, a wise response to all that energy, and actually potentialize it and use it for a higher purpose aligned to your mission, actually. Yeah, I will also put the images of all the benefits that came to my mind at that moment when I was doing the flyer, because actually they're unlimited. It's up to you. I mean, what's highest than being the best expression of yourself? Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, if you are interested in acquiring some sunglasses, loving sunglasses like this, you can tell me. I can ship them from Mexico. Okay, so Tiku uruhi ikinet arasu eniekatao. Hunu.